You're listening to Cards to the Moon, a podcast about trading cards from both a collector and investor perspective. We hope you'll stick around for the ride as we take a deep dive into the state of the hobby, share some hot takes, hopefully some useful advice, and fun stories along the way. Hey guys, welcome back to Cards to the Moon. This is episode 240, and my name is Clark from 5cardguys.com and 5cardguys on Instagram. Co-hosting with me, as usual, is Hyung of Integrity Sports Cards. John's away for the next few weeks, but we are working on getting a friend on the show to fill in. You probably know who we're talking about, but we'll let you know as soon as we get it confirmed. All right, off the top today, let's talk about a couple of new product releases. They seem to be coming left, right, and center these days. And this first one, the marketing, I have to say, for the 2023-24 Topps Mercury Victor Wembanyama box was pretty cool. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, it was all that fake footage of this large meteor flying through the sky. And then there was this sci-fi looking clip of the meteor crashing in front of a hobby shop. Can I tell you something, if I'm going to be honest? I first saw the initial clip of the meteor in the sky on our friend Cajun Cardboard's Instagram page. I thought it was real. I guess he was in on the trick.
Yeah, Cajun Cardboard was in on it.
He's like, did you see this? And I'm like Googling on the news and see what's going on, and there's nothing being reported. And then that kind of clued me in to, that, okay, something might be fishy here. And then, of course, they release the other video that was definitely more obviously fake. But anyway, it was all to promote the Topps Mercury box featuring Wemby, and it's going for a cool $8,000 per box. 8 cards in one box. And this is what Topps says on their website, that, quote, this high-end trading card product commemorates Victor Wembanyama's rookie season dominance with an unprecedented collection of chromium autographs, inscriptions, and game-worn memorabilia from the 23-24 season, end quote. And, of course, the big chase is the dual auto of Wemby and LeBron that will be in one of these boxes as well. So, question for you, Hyung. There's a draw to have a chance to buy this on October 9 at 12 p.m. Would you go for it for $8,000?
Well, man, this is tough because obviously the price tag, but I did put my name in it because I definitely, I mean, you can make the decision then. There's no commitment until then, right?
Sure.
So, but at the same time, it's pretty crazy. Like, okay, we got to unwrap this because you got to be able to, I guess, give it a fair shake. So, Topps Transcendent is known to be super high end. It's like $25,000 a box. This was pre-COVID. This is super high end collecting, so it does exist. One thing to note about this Victor set is that it's solely a Victor set, so it's not a regular checklist. So this is exclusive Victor Wembanyama. So I think there's super, super high demand. I know there's been, J-Rod had a set last year that I would say didn't do too well.
Right.
We got to remember, this is still unlicensed product, which is insane. And the craziest thing is that it will sell out.
Yes.
There's a few reasons that I think this product will do well. One, from the price point, you're guaranteed, I guess it would be 2 Victor autos within that set. Yep. And $8,000 is obviously a hefty price. You got to remember, right now the street market for Chrome base autos in the Topps Chrome release is like $1,100. So you're guaranteed a game used auto relic, which is key. This is what we talked about before on the show, that Fanatics has the ability to now create better relics and memorabilia because they already have access to that resource to be able to put it in a product now. So I think there's the allure of, wow, this is actually game used. I think that was one of Topps's downfall or knock against them, is that They have the napkin patches. It's not even game used. So there's no really collectability to it. But from a memorabilia standpoint, I think it's really cool to see in a product that they're putting game use stuff. It is unlicensed, like I mentioned, so there is that. Mm-hmm. But let's. So I don't know the exact print run. I did do some research. Let's just see it from a top standpoint. It is said that there are 3,000 boxes manufactured. Okay.
3,000. Okay.
Yeah. So that's a $24 million drop.
That's crazy. Yeah.
That's crazy. Like the cost to actually do it, like manufacture it. Let's not talk about like the partnerships or whatever deal you have with Victor Wembanyama, but just to produce it alone, I guarantee you that thing costs less than $100,000 of raw materials.
Right. Yeah,
so just to put into perspective at what this is from an economic standpoint, if that is true that there's 3,000 boxes made, right? That brings up another interesting point. So that means that if there's 3,000 boxes and 2 guaranteed autos plus a potential bonus auto, they say, in inserts and stuff like that with the dual autos, that means there's 6,000 now Victor Wemby autos flooding the market, right? So, and then put into perspective, the big chase in Topps Chrome Basketball was obviously Victor Wembanyama. That's it, with LeBron James autos, right? There were 2,170 Victor autos in the Topps Chrome product. So there are 6,000 autos. Given that there are 3,000 boxes being made for this, there are 6,000 more autos flooding the market. What does that look like future pricing? Can it sustain itself at that point?
Sure. Yeah. Maybe
that's the question that you have to really say, okay, now in his rookie season, there's 10,000 autos, let's just say. From Bowman Chrome U, Bowman Inception, Topps Chrome, and now
Topps Mercury.
Yeah, Topps Mercury, and then obviously Topps Chrome Sapphire is coming out. So how many autos are there of Victor at the end of the day, and how many are unlicensed, which is insane. So that's my only breakdown, I guess. I'm on both sides right now because it's interesting. It's a lot of stuff that we talked about. It's like, how can Fanatics do a total changeover of our perception of unlicensed product? Is it valuable? Is there sustainability? All these things that we were questioning, we're seeing right in front of us. And the crazy thing is, it will sell out. There's no doubt in my mind that it will sell out.
100%.
Breakers are going to have a fun time with this product. And I'm sure if you're one of the guys that fall into the break where you get a base card, I think it would be a pretty sad day. Yeah.
No, I mean, that's what I was going to say. The reason why it's going to sell out is breakers alone will buy all 3,000 if that's how many boxes there are, right? And then, you're sprinkling in guys like yourself and other people that just put their name in to see what happens, right? I'm not putting my name in. A, it costs $8,000, but B, if I got a chance to buy it, oh man, I don't want to be faced with that temptation.
I do think though, if you're the initial guy with a chance to buy it, I think you'll do well with the product, period.
Right. Yeah. No. Still $8,000.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, and then, just to add to what you were saying, the product does have 8 cards. Those autograph and autograph relic cards, it says on the website it's numbered to 99 or lower, right? So it is numbered. So that's a plus. You do get 2 base cards, as you also mentioned, within the box. And then the chase, of course, is a huge thing with the dual auto. But yeah, it's incredible. And I am glad you brought up the point that it is unlicensed. People kind of tend to forget it because of the Wemby hype. So I wonder too, like when the licensing comes in for the NBA with Fanatics, what's that going to do to all the product that's out now that's unlicensed? It'll be interesting to see if it's the unlicensed factor is bigger or the fact that it's his first year product with Topps Chrome or Topps is a bigger factor. I don't know which way it's going to go, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, and we don't know because unlicensed was a big no-no even like 2 years ago. So the fact that people who believe that unlicensed is not the way to go, they're still ripping it. Which is crazy, right? So it's like the human behavior that we've always been conditioned to. Now we're kind of thinking differently. With that said, that brings up the major point that I brought up is, can 10,000 Wemby autos sustain itself? Like, is there enough demand, that much demand? And remember, this is the off season. This is when right. prices are supposed to be cheap. This is when you buy your basketball before, the next season, comes, and it's still selling strong. Victor's still selling strong, but I will say you see all the older stuff that was hyped. Mm-hmm. It's crashing too at the end of the day. The problem is, where is the bottom, and will Victor perform to the point where, there's constant demand for that? And that's sure. what you're basing your belief on, right? Some people don't think so. Some people do. So I think if you do believe in Victor, I don't think it's necessarily a bad route if that's what you believe. But obviously there are crashes even with his other cards that were high in demand at release. We're starting to see it, but this is just another version of that. But I will say the cards do look great. They do look a little knockoff.
That's nice-ish
with Panini. It does give, I think, more credibility being game used. I think that's the key. I think that's the biggest thing that Fanatics can do to separate themselves from the past, and also moving forward in the future with patch autos and relics, because there was a point in time where patches and relics weren't that cool to collect. It was like, oh, you get a patch. It's like, how can we make that part a little cooler, or a little demanding, or a higher demand for people and collectors that appreciate stuff like that. So I'm looking forward to seeing the responsiveness at the end of the day. I believe that it's going to sell out. It's going to do really well. People are crazy. Like, that's why this is one aspect of the hobby that I think a lot of hobbyists like puke in their mouth and they want nothing to do with, but it's part of the hobby. Whether you like it or not, it's still going to do well. There's still going to be collectors of Wemby that think that this is great too, right? So there's best of both worlds. Am I participating in it in any breaks? Probably not. But like I said, there's a bit of everything for everybody, that, whatever their cup of tea is. And some people might say, you know what, I've never done this before. I'll drop $1,400 in one spot. And then they hit a massive, $50,000 or $100,000 Wemby, and they will be on the other side saying, you know what, this is the greatest thing, right? So it is the casino version of our hobby, but it is what it is, right?
It is what it is, and it's another episode altogether with where the hobby's going. But I agree with what people say. Like, it doesn't, if you don't like it, then there are other things you can do in the hobby. You don't 100%. Have to create such a big fuss. Let's move on. Well, speaking of Wemby, actually, obviously he's a big chase in this year's Topps Chrome Basketball, and you kind of mentioned it briefly. There is a Sapphire version coming out. Do you think this will be popular, or do you think, kind of what you were saying about autographs being flooded, do you think this is a little too much product in a short period of time?
I think it is, but I think there's enough demand for it. So that's the crazy part is, it also gives other opportunities for other people to participate in this without going into the $8,000 boxes. There's probably 95% of the whole hobby that really is not going to participate, right? In the Topps Mercury. So, at $4.99 a box, is it steep? Absolutely. But I think from a marketing standpoint, after you release an $8,000 box, the $4.99 doesn't look so bad, right? So it's like, I can't. A deal. Yeah. So maybe it's part of the marketing that they did, where it's like, but in reality, that's really expensive for a Sapphire Blaster box, pretty much. So I don't know. Yeah, it's going to be a tough go. I think if you're going to break Sapphire, you're going to get skunked pretty bad. But at the same time, it's going to sell out.
Man, Topps, Fanatics making,
they're doing
tons
well.
of money right now.
Yeah, they're doing well.
Yes. All right. Well, speaking of them doing well, one more thing I want to talk about is the Topps Now chase, the new Topps Now chase. We're still waiting for the triple auto of LeBron, KD, and Steph Curry, but there is another Steph Curry card. It's the Night card featuring not just only Steph Curry, but Lionel Messi, who's also doing the sleeping pose that Curry is well known for, when he puts the game away. And just like that triple auto, a one-of-one dual auto version of that Night card will be randomly inserted into one of the Topps Now packs. Honestly, I was going to ignore this one, but now I got a friend asking if I was going to get it, and now I might split with them, and now our card group is talking about doing a group buy, so I'm like, I think we might be getting it. I think we might be going for it. So, what do you think about this Topps Now Night card?
We always said this, that the Topps Now brand pre-Fanatics had so much potential. We just didn't love the branding, because if you think about it, what's the good thing about Topps Now? Forget the branding part of it. What's cool about Topps Now? I think what's cool is you get moments.
Yes.
And moments are experienced by collectors and fans. And if you look at famous moments in the past, there are so many things that would be valuable in today's marketplace had we captured that moment. So there's always been that potential. And I think pre-Fanatics, you've seen the potential, but you're like, I can't buy into Topps Now. Fast forward, there's people that never bought Topps Now card now participating in Topps Now, which is crazy. Yeah. Like, exactly. You're one of them, right? So it's like, whatever they're doing is working. And I like what they're using is they're utilizing basically popular moments. They understand from a user standpoint. And we said this in a couple pods where I brought up the Shohei point of experience, fan interaction. It's the same thing that you use those two in conjunction with the collecting experience. Now you have differences of value, of what value is. It's not so black and white because you've tied emotion with it like big time. And to me, that's like priceless for collectors and fans. And that's the experience that Fanatics has. They already have that resource built. It's not like you have to be like, okay, how are we going to convince LeBron James? How are we going to convince Victor Wembanyama? It's like these guys are now doing it voluntarily. And to bring up another point, it's like pre-Fanatics, if Topps wanted an autograph, they use the redemption process because there's no relationship with, let's just say, Shohei Ohtani and Topps, other than you have 2,000 cards to sign, get it to us at your earliest convenience, and then redemption process. They're eliminating that. So think about their capabilities now of on-card autos, which is huge from a collectible standpoint. If now Fanatics can produce more on-card autos, so think, in this Topps Mercury set, if they're generating $24 million of revenue, let's just say from a business standpoint, you're going to have someone go and make sure Victor signs all 6,000 on-card autos that bring way more value to that experience because you have that partnership established. And this is where I think Fanatics in general is doing the little things that businesses don't see necessarily. That's what pushes the needle. That's what makes the difference between pre-Fanatics and Fanatics with Topps right now is now they're expanding through their resources that are invaluable. And if you could mix the two, which they're doing a really good job, you're going to have a successful launch or drop or whatever. And that's the way I see it. It's not releases. They're drops, just like sneakers. There's super high demand in these products by creating manufactured demand. And they're selling out every time, right? And to my point, Topps Now is that brand. I think moving forward, it has a strong brand with what they're doing with all these chases and these moments that, collectors and fan bases appreciate. So, like I said, it's not necessarily, I'm just praising Fanatics for what they're doing. It's like, man, if I own Fanatics, I'd probably do the same thing because it's working based on what resources Fanatics brings to the table.
Yeah. Another way of putting it, and I loved your explanation, but another way of putting it is that Topps now they're intentional about Topps Now cards, whereas before it seemed like an afterthought. You know what I mean? And it goes to your point about redemptions. Like, oh, okay, we did this now. Let's just make it a redemption. Now we got to get the athlete to sign it, and it's like I said, it's an afterthought. But now it's like, let's get the athletes involved because we have these relationships with them, we have partnerships with them, and they could be part of the whole marketing process in terms of launching these Topps Now cards as well. So very intentional. That's what I love about it. And as we were recording this pod, I just saw I saw a message from Will, our friend Will, in the chat group, and he kind of encapsulates exactly what we're saying. And this is his quote: "Fanatics made Topps Now collectible. Wild." That's
it's so
perfect.
True. It's so true. It's like, when did this happen?
That's the best way of putting it. Shout out to Will. But yeah, that's crazy. How all of a sudden we're excited about what the next Topps Now card is. You know what I mean? So insane. All right. Well, we'll let you know if we buy some, and I always record anything that we hit. Even one more thing I'll add. So I got the Topps Now U.S. Olympic basketball card. I didn't get the 1-of-1 triple auto, but the Topps Now card, even the base, the quality is a million times better with what the Topps Now card was before. Right. You know what I mean? Before it was just paper, like it was like your regular Topps Series 1 material. Now it's like a little thicker, a little shinier. It has like a gloss to it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So much better in terms of quality.
That's huge too, because if people are paying individual prices for those cards, that means margins are way bigger than a regular checklist. Because when you're ripping those cards in a regular checklist, a common card or whatever might be $1. You're paying $1 per card or whatever it is, right. And you're getting the quality of $1 per card at the end of the day, and you're chasing scarcity. But in this sense, it's people are paying. How much did you pay per card?
$10-11.
Exactly. So a huge margin, make the card way better so that you're getting a good product and people are happy with it. And then at the same time, you create that manufactured scarcity that ends up, creating that demand. So like, I like that, right. The fact that they're putting more effort in the card, because I like nicer things. Like if I'm spending $10 on a card, it should be nice, manufactured wise.
Absolutely. All right, that's enough about Fanatics. We really
until next week.
Enjoy until next week. All right, let's move on to hobby headlines. So I don't know if you heard, but Texas Rangers third baseman Josh Jung, he launched his own card show on YouTube called Clubhouse Breaks, and this is what he says it's about on his Instagram page. It's a series dedicated to shining light on guys in the game who collect. And episode 1 features none other than Mike Trout, which they filmed a couple weeks before the National. And anyway, I watched all 30 minutes of it. And as you know, they were ripping open a couple boxes of 2011 Topps Update, which is, of course, where you get Mike Trout rookie cards. And they actually hit a base and a gold of Mike Trout's card. So that was cool to see. And you know what? I actually loved watching the show. It's pretty entertaining, and Josh Jung is one of the few guys who can do a show like this, right? Because he's got the access, obviously. He's also a collector, and I think he's natural in front of the camera. And Anthony Ronaldo? He was a pitcher, right?
Yeah.
And he's also into collecting. He was also in on the rip session in the episode 1, so it's cool to see him talk to Trout and talk to Jung about cards in general. And it's just 3 guys just chatting about cards, kind of like our show. 3 guys just chatting about cards, and it seemed like a really smooth flow of conversation. So anyway, for this segment, I thought we could just react to some of the interesting things from the video I learned about Mike Trout as a collector, and we can see where this conversation goes from each point. All right. And, and this is kind of a shout out to Josh Jung in this show, because if you didn't see it, you should see it. I'm already eager to see what episode, who's on episode 2. But you learned a lot. And Mike Trout, to be honest, he's not a dynamic personality. He kind of has a monotone, but he's just kind of cool. But then every once in a while he'll get excited talking about cards, which is kind of funny. I just jotted down several notes that I found interesting. So first. Mike Trout, he only started collecting, he says, about 3 years ago. And I feel like there's this general trend of more and more ball players getting into the hobby, right? So it's kind of cool to see Mike Trout get into it. We know Garrett Cole's into it too, and who else? Like there's Young, Corbin Carroll, Bobby Witt.
Yeah, a lot of young stars are starting to collect as well, which is cool. I think just in general, just having those guys, because when we grew up, we idolized like our stars, like whether it was Ben McDonald or Todd Van Poppel. Like we would be like, oh man, if we could get inclusive access to what they were doing. We didn't know, we just seen them as like superstars, right? But to see as a collector nowadays, like you get into the hobby and see some of your MLB favorite stars collecting, it makes you like, it keeps you entertained, one, because you start looking into kind of like what an MLB superstar thinks about like the hobby and what you're into, right? So I think there's huge collection or collectors, I guess, connections with their favorite MLB stars. And one thing I do love is that they pulled out even basketball and football cards. They're not just baseball collectors. They're collecting everything, and they had probably more football and basketball than baseball. So I love to see that. What they're doing. The show is awesome. I think it's so healthy and great for the hobby. Even from a sports fan standpoint, I think it's a great initiative for sure.
Agreed. And, we've interviewed Rob Wong on our podcast before, and that's, even his content's great because he's on the field as a sports editor, sports reporter, and he gets to talk to some of these MLB players who are into collecting, and you like to see what they collect, right? And kind of to your point, another point I wrote down is that Trout doesn't just collect baseball cards, but he's really into football. They're sports fanatics themselves. He's an Eagles fan, so you learn that he collects Jalen Hurts. He also pulled out a stack of Wemby cards, which he's collecting. I guess he can afford them more than we can, but he's got a stack of Wemby cards, and he likes to collect Tyrese Maxey of the Sixers. So he's a big Philadelphia sports club fan. And one thing I thought was interesting was like he said he was watching the Stanley Cup playoffs, and he got into the McDavid hype, so he started collecting his cards as well. So he knows what to collect.
that definitely helps the marketplace. I think you have these big time MLB players, NBA stars, they start, even like Jake Paul, when he was at Fanatics, like people start collecting the high-end stuff. It just makes your stuff that much more valuable. So that's why if you see opportunity, I think there's great, that's why you always have to buy scarcity though. Like scarcity and relevancy, and guys like Deep Value Investor, and they talk about these things, and at the highest level, that's what these stars are looking for. They're looking for the most scarce. They have the budgets, and other people play in this game too, where it's like, I rather have less cards and like more rare and just enjoy my rare cards for years instead of being the serial collector that has to buy every single set or buy into every break. And I've done both. I have thousands upon thousands upon thousands of Bowman Chrome like base cards, which I still go through. I submit still, but like even the last 4 years, we've been kind of transitioning from when we started this podcast to where it is now. My collecting like style has changed, right? So everything is, changing as the hobby goes, but it's these guys that kind of like make the changes happen. So
yeah, for sure. And it's funny because to your point, Mike Trout reveals like the things he likes to collect, but the thing that they can do, like pro MLB players, is like they can obviously collect their own cards. And he has some kind of deal with PSA where he can submit to them and they'll label it especially for him that says something like Trout Family Collection.
Right.
And I think it's just for his own PC. I think he inscribes or autographs his own card, which gets submitted, and then it comes right back to him. And
Crazy.
He has no intention of selling. I think he mentioned he's planning to just give it to his son back when he's older, right? So that's it's baseball cards has always been like that, like something you could do with the family.
And I think PSA always did that too, because they have like the Dimitri Young collection. They have like the Arizona Diamondbacks owners, Mickey Mantle, like, because it becomes a collectability thing, because what makes it rare? So if it's Mike Trout's like rare collection, his own collection, and then let's just say something happened where that card was out and it was available on the market, that thing would be priceless compared to just a standard Trout card, right? So I think it's so cool that Mike Trout has his own collection and label. Because people will say, why does he get? Well, because he's Mike Trout and he's he's a superstar. That's why, right? Yeah, and that's the whole point of collectability, right? Is rare and 100%. Scarce. Yeah.
And I think Anthony Ronaldo asked him, like, how many of these cards do you have in your Trout family collection? He says he thinks he's up to 200 now. So there's 200 out there. Maybe you see one of them come into the market. That's your rarity level right there. It's about 200. And I'm sure he's adding to it too, because he's always looking for cool cards, he says. He's also into kabooms and downtown, so he's just like the rest of us. A lot of people like the kabooms and downtowns. And here's another relatable thing about Trout that I learned. He loves to rip. Okay? He loves to rip. It's like, and he also realizes something we all know as long-term collectors, that he's like, if you really want a card, it's better to buy singles instead of ripping. He's like, right now what we're doing, we're just wasting money. Yeah. He says,
and he said he was on pace when he said every time he hits a home run, he buys a hobby box, and then it's like, good luck with that. You're gonna have a lot of base cards there, and I think he realized that. But it's cool to see that, like, coming from someone who's made hundreds of millions of dollars from the game,
right?
Saying this is not worth it.
And even one other thing I kind of laughed about was when he said initially when he got back into the hobby, he wanted to start collecting the rainbow of his rookie cards. So I'm assuming it's Bowman Chrome. But then he realized how expensive it's getting, especially with, the more rare refractors, the red, orange. And he said he did meet the guy who currently owns a Superfractor, right? One of one. He said he was a cool guy, but
he's a cool guy. Cool guy.
I think Josh Jung is like, hey, did he ever mention just gifting it to you? He's like, no, I don't want. It's a lot of money he invested. I wouldn't want him to do that anyways. But
Trout has the money. There's no gifting it to these MLB super. You guys are paying. I don't care what anybody says. You guys are paying. And if I'm trying to like collect too, I think that would be another piece that would kind of make me invest in a card more so, is if there's more demand from it from a player perspective. So for me, if I'm investing in a big time Mike Trout, just knowing that card is in demand from Mike Trout will make me a little more bullish on that card itself. So I think it's super cool to have an outlet of these rare collectibles, to be able to give it, or like not give it, because we're going to sell it. We're going to sell it to like Evan Carter's and Josh Young's, of the world. And maybe it's a trade for experience. I remember, I forgot who it was. It might've been Josh Young or Wyatt Langford. One of them who traded the Superfractor for that experience. Right. Yes. So, cool. And even Mendez on KC, he did the same thing. So, super, super cool that like I would do that more so than just give obviously the card to them, right? You need something in return.
Yes, and that's just as valuable for some people, right? That experience for sure. Just to the point of him, realizing how much his cards are going for. He also shared a story where he was just talking to his dad, he says, right? And then he's like, can you believe this? Like, I was in 2009, I was signing that Superfractor card in my house in South Jersey when it wasn't worth anything.
Crazy.
We've been able to, especially you, because you have a lot of connections with some of these minor leaguers and prospects, but they're going through the same thing now where they're just signing these cards in their home and it's not worth anything, but who knows, 10 years down the line, this could be a 6-figure card.
And that's the exact point that I'm glad you made, because there are so many people that say, I just don't understand Bowman Chrome prospecting. That's the answer. That's that fraction of a percentage of a chance is all that is needed to keep a marketplace strong. And that's the crazy part about it, is that you don't know. And you're like, people who say Bowman Chrome, they haven't even had a career and people are paying thousands of dollars. Yes, you're very, very correct. And it's an observation, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a waste or it's not worth it, because there's people that want that superfractor of Paul Skeens or the superfractor of Jackson Churia or Jackson Holiday, because they believe too that they are the future Mike Trouts, right? So there's always going to be that chase with prospecting, because of that sole purpose and sole reason is that they are future superstars. And maybe it's just 5% of them or 2% of what's being actually produced, but that's just the reality of it, and history shows, right? So
yep. And you know what, for baseball card collectors and baseball fans, if you're both, it's another fun way to invest in players, right? Like you follow their careers, and I think Trout even mentioned that it's like there's so many different ways you can collect, from guys in single A, with their minor league cards, all the way to their rookie year, and then even beyond their rookie years. There's so many entry points. So that was kind of cool for him to recognize that. Another thing he mentioned, there's a few things that he's like, oh, he gets us. We always joke on our podcast where when they ripped his Topps update gold, which is a big hit, right? He's like, oh, I don't know why they call this gold. It's more like bronze.
Like flat. Actually, 2011 wasn't that bad, but yeah, like I know what you mean. The crazy thing is Josh Jung's reaction to that was like, oh, we pulled a goal. It's like, that's a monster card. That's a really, really big card.
Yeah. Even Trout recognized it was a monster card.
Yeah.
But it's you're right. It wasn't as bad as like the golds now, right? Where it's like a brownish.
I think 2011 had that spark, like a little sparkly tint to the matte finish. So the gold was a little nicer, I would say, but the last few years it's been rough because it's literally like a brown color. It looks like copper or bronze, or it's brutal.
Exactly. He also pulled the Wemby Kaboom card, which everyone wants, and he also noticed that it's terribly off-centered, and I don't think there's any grade above PSA 8 so far, right? But he actually pulled a Wemby Kaboom. What else did he say? Oh, you know what I'm jealous of? So when he did play with Shohei Ohtani, I don't know if you saw this part, he got Shohei to sign some of his cards in kanji autos.
Oh, amazing.
So he's got a bunch of kanji auto Shohei cards in his personal stash as well.
I love that.
You might as well make use of that connection if you have it, right?
And though stuff like that will just make the kanji auto that much more desirable, because it's so rare. I love that Ohtani has like 3 different autos, because there's tiers in autos now that are demanded, because everybody could agree the kanji auto is the most expensive auto that you could get of Shohei. You won't get it. If you have a chance to buy it, I would say it's a great piece. And then you have his kind of 2018 to 2020 auto, and then his more recent auto. So I love that. That auto is different than his other 2, and it makes kind of the tiers in Ohtani's auto, and it makes it even more valuable that Trout even wants that, right? So
yeah, for sure. It was a good show, because he, you learn what he collects. He says he loves ripping Prism football, Flawless. He can afford Flawless as well, and there was a joke that I don't know if you knew, but he and Todd Frazier, they were both rookies in 2011. Yeah. And they're both from Jersey. And I guess Ronaldo got Trout to inscribe. They hit a Frazier card. He's like, oh, can you inscribe this second best player from Jersey? And I guess they're going to send it to Todd Frazier.
That's awesome.
So it's kind of cool that they could joke around with fellow players like that. So it's if you haven't seen the episode, Clubhouse Breaks by Josh Jung. I don't know when the second episode's coming out, but it's kind of great idea.
I love it.
I feel like it's this new wave of players doing their own thing, and I think Matt Strom has his own show as well. He's a Phillies pitcher. And we've already seen like an explosion of athletes having their own podcasts. Right. I think this is like the next evolution. Athletes having their own YouTube show, right?
I think it brings a lot more value to their personal brand too, because like when they're negotiating these big contracts and they have, let's just say, a social media presence, and Ohtani is the finest example. That because whatever he does from a media standpoint, it's worth money, right? So if you're building that independently before these big contracts for these players, even Josh Jung, he doesn't have a massive contract, but he could potentially be a big time player. So building his social following and his personal brand could be a leveraging chip that he brings to the table when they're leveraging their deals. And that's part of the reason why these athletes are getting these 9-figure massive deals is because of what they're worth from a media standpoint. And
for sure,
I think a lot more of these athletes are recognizing it. And a lot of these ex-MLB athletes who are out of the game, they've known baseball their whole life. They've been in the limelight their whole life. So how do they stay relevant? They got to give back now by giving maybe something that people are looking for. And it's through, like, even Eric Hosmer. I love that he's doing his podcasts and just baseball in general, because he's lining up these interviews with like Tatis, Machado, like all these stories that you don't know about. It's same thing as the card collecting thing too, where you're getting insight on these famous athletes. So I think it goes hand in hand with the culture that's happening in general with social media. But I love that like these athletes are doing this, because it gives us fans and collectors more of the experience and more of the emotional tie into what these guys are doing.
No, I'm glad you brought that up, because it's so true. And let's be honest here, that for some of these players, if they do well in terms of building up their social media brand, that could be more lucrative than their actual professional career.
Sure.
Like unless you're Mike Trout or Soto or Ohtani, I'm sure Hosmer's gonna at the end of the day make more money by increasing his brand outside of the game.
For sure.
It's still connected, but look at Jason Kelce, perfect example. They just signed a huge deal with Spotify or whatever podcast provider, and they're just providing content now. And I'm sure that's made him easier to retire as well. I'm sure he loved the game, but he's like, oh, I got something to do now that's just as lucrative, even more lucrative. Yeah, for sure. But I'll close off with this for this segment. Josh Jung did mention that not all ball players are on board. We're seeing more and more, but I'm sure there's a bunch that still have no idea about collecting, although they're in the game. And one of those guys is Corey Seager, his teammate. I guess Seager calls him a nerd for collecting. And then Trout was saying, don't worry, Corey Seager, he just doesn't get it right now. So I'm sure Seager will join the clubs soon enough.
All it takes is one hobby box.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's I think that's what got Trout in, just one hobby, and now he's saying like he can't even see the case in his house. He's like, get that out of here or I'm gonna rip. So the addiction is real for sure. All right, let's go on to our next segment we call Over Under. All right, we always like doing Over Under because we like to monitor where these prices are these days. So just like last time, I'm going to give you 3 or 4 cards. I'm going to give you a number, and you tell me what the last card sold for, if it was over or under the number I gave you. All right?
Sounds good.
So we'll start with the lowest. Paul Skeens, right? Very, very hot pitcher right now. Still doing very well. 2023 Bowman Draft Chrome First Prospect Auto. Base, PSA 10. $1,000.
Man,
over or under that
amount? I think he deserves still the National League Rookie of the Year, and I think he's gonna get it. I think was enormous amount of hype surrounding Paul Skeens, and I still think there is. So naturally, I want to say it's over, but I do think his market softened a little bit. So I'm wondering. I was gonna say that's the $1,000 price point would be that price point. So this one's a tough one. I want to say it's over, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's somewhere between 900 and 1,000. So I'm going to say under.
Yeah, you know what? You're right about that. It's definitely softened, but it's still high at 1,246, wow. 1,246.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's that initial hype has come down, but yeah, it's still holding. All right, next one. 1986 Topps traded Tiffany of Barry Bonds. All right, Barry Bonds, 1986 Topps traded Tiffany, PSA 10. I'm throwing out 5,000.
5,000. I could see it definitely go under in the last year or so, the last couple of years. But I'm gonna say it's over because I think Bonds is underrated still. I don't care what anybody says. Like, I grew up watching Bonds, and to me, there's nothing in history. Ohtani season, 50-50 season is incredible. I would put that Bonds in the same category as Ohtani. So I think he's super underpriced. He came from the junk wax era. There's not a lot of rare cards of Barry Bonds, and I think the Topps Tiffany is one of them. So I'm going to say it's over $5,000.
Yep, 6,200, well over, and it's been seeing a slight uptick over the last year too. And I don't know if it's a golden effect because he's on that show. And there was an Instagram reel I just saw yesterday actually, and the stat was like, if you take away all his MVP seasons, right? Just take all those away, he still has 440 career home runs.
Crazy.
which is insane. 300 plus stolen bases without any of its MVP seasons.
Yeah, Nintendo numbers, yeah.
For sure. All right, two more. We talked about Victor Wembanyama. So in the Topps Chrome 2023-24 Topps Chrome set, there's the 1972 version. And I think it's you can only get it from Breakers Delight, but a gold refractor of it was graded a PSA 10. So that was pretty quick since the release. I'm throwing out 15,000.
Gold, and it's a PSA 10?
Yeah. It's not the prom pose, but it's.
I do like that card, that base card. Apparently, the base card, I think it's one of the more print runs of that, like the base 72 insert. I'm gonna say it's over $15,000 because people are crazy.
Again, you're right about people being crazy, but it just fell under at 14,700. So that was a hard one. All right, last one. Got to end with Shohei. 2018 Topps Chrome Gold Refractor. You know, the one I had was a base. I'm talking about the Gold Refractor, the Topps Chrome Rookie Auto, number to 50, of course. PSA 10, 20,000.
Ooh. I would say it like about a few months ago, I would have said it was between 15 and 20. Somebody would have paid between 15 and 20. I think this 50-50 season is making it go above the 20, which is insane. I'm gonna say over.
You're right. 25,500 sold this week.
I remember I was saying, during that time, it's like, you know what? People are gonna think that I'm insane, but this is a buy at $15,000.
Right.
Like, this was a few months ago or whatever it was, and it's just, this is why people do, like, it's not necessarily, because then the argument becomes, is that worth $15,000? Well, it was to them at the time, because $15,000 to a $25,000 flip would be great. Right? So yeah, it's insane.
It's insane. It's insane what Shohei's doing on the field. So close to 50. This is why I said I'm not buying the 40-40 Topps Now card. We were talking about Topps Now earlier, and then there's a 40-40 inscription. I'm like, no, if he does 50-50, the 40-40 card's not worth that much. Right. You know what I mean? So I'm like,
I will say this. 50-50. I will say this. I know MLB on social media, they cover every single stolen base and home run. Everything Ohtani does, they cover. But
tracker, yeah.
And people say, oh, why are they showing this? It's not even 50-50. I'm telling you, you're living in one of the greatest seasons in history that's never been done ever in the history of the 150 plus years, baseball's been around. So it's like, enjoy every single moment, enjoy every stolen base. I love it because I don't have to look for it. I see every single one. So 20, 30 years from now, I'm going to be like, you know what? I've seen every single stolen base and home run that Shohei hit that year, right? Leading up to that 50-50. I think that's such a cool experience as a fan, as a sports fan, that's going to look back at what he's done and be like, man, this guy's not human. This guy is doing things. And it'd be crazier if he comes back and wins like a Cy Young or whatever next year or whatever. Like, I'm not going to be surprised. What else can he do? Yes. That's what we're looking for. So yeah, it's insane. Yeah.
For that reason, I'm actively looking to pick up any Shohei card. I just want it to be the right one, but
the off season.
Like, what? off season, and whatever premium it costs, just take my money.
Yeah.
But let me ask you this, because I just saw this the other day as well on social media. Which one are you more impressed with? The 50-50, potential 50-50 by Ohtani, or the 40-70 that Acuna did last
50-50.
year?
I think the 50-50 is, for me, they're both are pretty impressive, but I think the 50-50 that's very tough to do. There's only few guys that hit 50 home runs in a season. Mm-hmm. I think that's the barrier. That's the hard one. That's the hard one. Like, people are going to hit a bunch of 40s. And I think, for instance, Ellie De La Cruz might be able to do that 40-70. But 50-50, I don't know if anybody will ever do it again. Never say never, because it took Ohtani 150 years, right? So, I mean, what you're witnessing is craziness. And who knows? Maybe the game's evolving because we have all this data now to be able to create those guys that are doing the Shohei work, but I don't see it happening in the near future. It's not like it's going to be the new standard by any means. I think you're looking at, even like in general, offense numbers are down.
Yeah.
So that's something to remember. Whereas, like, back in 20 years ago, offensive numbers were up in general. So Ohtani's doing it at an insane clip. Clip, yeah.
That's why it's especially more impressive now at this time. Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, when he does hit the 50-50, I guess to our card chat group, we'll go in the Topps Now card.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
absolutely.
All right. Let's finish the show off with our regular weekly segment we call Pick One. And this is where each of us, we choose two cards, and then we debate which one we would rather invest in. So do you want to start things off, Hyung?
Sure. We mentioned earlier on that over under the Paul Skeens. And it's interesting to see, that was the question that we've asked the last 4 years, catchers and pitchers, why they get no hobby love. But here comes Paul Skeens, that is totally changing the game. I still think there's massive opportunity with Hall of Fame pitchers or potential Hall of Fame pitchers that get no hobby love. So with that said, I'm going to prove a point here. And maybe it's something that, could shed some light, but I'm going to compare two potential or two sure Hall of Famers. I'm going to call it. They're both Hall of Famers. They're both active players. I find one card price is a little higher for justified reasons, but it's going to be Clayton Kershaw and Justin Verlander. Okay. So obviously Clayton Kershaw, is a lot younger than Verlander, and he plays for the Dodgers. So there's that component to it. So I'm going to bring up his Bowman Chrome from 2006 draft picks. His auto X-Fractor auto is numbered to 225. Okay, so Clayton Kershaw Bowman Chrome X-Fractor auto numbered to 225. A PSA 9 sold a couple days ago for $2,246. Okay,
it's not bad.
It's not bad. It's not terrible. Okay,
it was on my watch list, but I think there was a print. I think there was a print line, which is why I didn't bid on it. But anyway,
right.
PSA 9,
and this is to note: both Verlander and Kershaw haven't had the season that they obviously expected. So there is that. They're on a down year, but there's no argument that what they've done from a career perspective has solidified, kind of like Hall of Fame, right? So I'm going to pair that X-Fractor with Verlander's Bowman Chrome X-Fractor the year before, numbered to 225, a BGS 9 Auto 10. So the other one was just a straight up PSA 9. This is Verlander's BGS 9 Auto 10, sold for $540. Oh,
that's criminal.
Right? Okay. Do you see where I'm going with this?
Yeah, it's Verlander all the way. The value is 100% there.
Yeah. Do you think that price discrepancy warrants that much of a difference between the two pitchers? Because Verlander obviously has a higher WAR right now, but it's 7 years older than Kershaw. And Kershaw's, let me just check Kershaw's WAR right now. So Clayton Kershaw's WAR is at a 79.4.
Okay.
And Justin Verlander, and he's 34 years old. Justin Verlander's WAR is at an 80.8. So we're talking.
Oh, it's tied.
It's tied, but Kershaw has 7 more years technically on Verlander in terms of. But you question, can Verlander or can Kershaw still produce, right? And I think so because like he's been dominant every year except for this year. He's coming back, so there might be a playoff hype with Kershaw, and that's given that his prices are a little more inflated. So there might be skewed, inflated results based on what Verlander's doing and what Kershaw's doing. He's coming back, playoff push to the favorite team, potential World Series team, impact player. But that's kind of the context behind it.
You know what? I would pick up the Verlander at that price because I think there's also like a steep discount on BGS 9, which I don't agree with.
Because you're just going to crack it, right? And submit it.
Let's polish it off a little bit. But yeah, plus everything you just mentioned, right? With the statistics and preferably, me personally, I would want Kershaw's card more,
right?
And I was thinking, like, even before you threw out that 500 number, I'm like, if it's at 50%, I would have to think about it. Like, if it was 1,000, if you said 1,000, I had to think about it. But then when you said 500, I'm like,
that's way too cheap.
Okay, I'm buying it tomorrow.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I'm a buyer at that price. No, that's too cheap. I agree. If I were to say there's a good buying opportunity, it's definitely Justin Verlander and also Max Scherzer. I think some of these pitchers that are, solidifying their career, and we're talking, they're producing just as good as of a career as like a Pedro Martinez's of the world. So for me, obviously they landed in the junk wax era, so there's that. But I think there's massive buying opportunity with Verlander and Scherzer right now. So I'm going with Verlander at $540 for BGS numbered to 225. It's a no-brainer. So I'm going to go Verlander. And that's why pitchers are underrated. Some pitchers, especially, I don't see people having long careers like Verlander with the whole modern baseball being around spin rate and velocity. Pitchers are going down like no tomorrow, right? So. Yep.
Agreed. Verlander sweep right there. All right. Good one. I'll finish off with mine. So we had our good friend Carlos in the studio the other day for Friday's episode, and he has the Star Jordan rookie, right? The 1984 Star Jordan rookie, and the last one sold. It says on Card Ladder for $62,500. The BGS 85, the one we held in our hand, right? So that same one, $62,500. Would you want that card at that price, right? Or a CJ Stroud Gold Kaboom 2023 Absolute for $62,000. Same price.
Good Lord. The crazy thing is, okay, like the CJ Stroud I think would be a better potential ROI in the short term. But obviously, like for me, there's so many things that can go wrong with that CJ Stroud card as well. Right. So that's what scares me. It's like that CJ Stroud could do more, but at 62,000, if I'm putting 62 grand cash down, right? If I was in it for like, let's just say I pulled it, both cards, then I probably would go with the CJ Stroud, as crazy as that sounds. But if I have to put $62,000 cash of my own money, in terms of an investment, it's definitely the Jordan Star card. And I know it's on an uptick, so I think it will settle a little bit, but you don't know when that is too. So I think there's a overhype of the Star card, but at the same time, I think in the long run, it will hold better value and a lot less headaches and heartache, I think. So for me, it's the Star card. But if I was in it for nothing, I would take my chances with the CJ Stroud card because I think it could do crazy numbers this football season. Yeah.
No, understood. And my answer is going to be this exact same as you, because I thought, with the Star, it's so volatile too right now, right? And we've seen the peaks and we've seen the valleys of the Star card itself in the last several years. Yeah. And I feel like we're in the similar cycle. So I feel like it'll drop, but kind of what you're saying, I think it will also come back up again. Yeah. It's like the Star card is on its own cycle, and of course MJ is a GOAT, right? And whereas CJ Stroud, like you said too, it's a lot of variable factors out there. If he has a horrible season, that's going to tank, right? But if the Texans do what a lot of people think they can do, take that next step in the playoffs, that could
for sure
see an easy boost for sure.
Absolutely.
So it could go either way. It's almost a flip of a coin, to tell you the truth. So I guess depends on your risk tolerance at the end of the day for short-term flips. All right, another great episode. Thank you guys for tuning in. We appreciate you guys, and we'll have a brand new episode for you guys next week. Talk to you then. Bye. Hey, thanks for listening to Cards to the Moon. We'd really appreciate you subscribing to our podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. And you can also connect with each of us on Instagram at 5Card Guys, or you can follow Hyung at Integrity Sports Cards, or John at Trade You at Recess. You can also check us out at 5cardguys.com. Thanks again, and hope to connect soon.